You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is June 18th, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Tonight, we are just going to focus on more issues of peaceful protesting. If you were watching last week, there was a video that we didn't upload, so we wanted to talk about that. And there's been some more issues that have come up on the same thing with, a lot of these occupations of the roadway, and also, too, issues with people rushing the mic, and and also too, we've seen some issues of true violence in Minnesota, political violence. So we're going to talk about all of these issues, and then we will also talk a little bit about, in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, something goofy Sean Penn said to Bill Maher. So you can stay tuned for that at the end. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host tonight. So before we jump into all of those topics, we always start out with a quote of the day, and this one is loosely connected, so I'm gonna bring this up. We have our old friend Walter Williams here that we want to share the quote from, and he says, "Prior to capitalism, the way people amassed great wealth was by looting, plundering, and enslaving their fellow man. Capitalism made it possible to become wealthy by serving your fellow man." And the main reason that caught my eye this time on this quote was because there's so many people out there during these riots or protests that think they're going to get rich by looting. I don't see these people as real capitalists. But it does seem like if, respect to private property is the heart of capitalism, and this is this is kind of what we see falling apart in a lot of these unpeaceful protests. Yes, I should say. What do you guys think about this quote? I think it's a fabulous quote.
Tim, you can go.
Better unmute. Yeah, that's a great quote. And not only is it dependent upon private property as part of the capitalism that allows you to serve your fellow man, but also the freedom to move. Because how do you trade goods if you can't move from point A to point B and either offer them or buy them? Offer them up for sale or buy them. So yeah, capitalism and freedom of movement and all these great things. Not to mention the division of labor that was kind of went along hand in hand, allowed capitalism to flourish, and capitalism allowed the division of labor to also flourish. So kind of a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, that's it. And that's about it.
It's funny, Tim, you said division of labor. I think a lot of those people out there looting don't want anything to do with labor.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks that way, huh?
The unfortunate thing that have happened in our society and in much of the Western world is that the word capitalism have become a bad name, almost a dirty word, that everybody now has associated capitalism with exploitation. When they look at Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, they don't give one crap about me, but yet their products have made me far more productive in my professional life. And this is where Walter Williams is so correct, that the capitalist really serves his or her fellow men and women because they produce goods and services through the matrix of capitalism that help us become more productive human beings. And people and much of the Western world have sort of lost that important lesson that comes from the very nature of capitalism. That voluntary exchanges and voluntary interactions is what propels capitalism, is what causes capitalism to flourish and causes we human beings to flourish. but too much of it is lost. Walter Williams is so right. I really do miss his writings that he have left behind. But the more writings that he could have done if he was still with us today. But this is a lesson in that quote. There's a lesson for all of us, for all of mankind, that the only decent way for us to become better citizens in our society is through the very nature of capitalism.
Walter's picture was one of my profile pictures on Facebook, so it confused people for a while. Thought maybe I don't know. Somehow.
You're transracial, Tim. This is the second week in a row you're trying to tell me that maybe you're transracial and you didn't tell us.
I guess I am. I guess I am. Yeah.
Well, I took it as he was trying to identify as an economist, Leon. I'm not sure.
I was just showing what a fanboy I am of the great Walter Williams, who is black by popular demand.
By the way, if you want to see a little bit of Walter Williams, one great place to catch a little of him is in the old Milton Friedman Free to Choose episodes. He's in one or two of those episodes. So,
Yes.
Definitely go back and check those out. It's well worth your while. So anyways, let's jump into the show issues. And like I said, we're going to be exploring issues of violence and protesting and politics and what is peaceful protesting. And I think we can't ignore what happened in Minnesota recently. Let me bring up the story on that. So we had an issue where literally a legislator, state legislator, was assassinated in Florida over her politics. And let's show you the video just so you can get a little bit of a sense of what that story is about.
The shootings over the weekend prompted a 43-hour-long manhunt.
His crimes are the stuff of nightmares.
Prosecutors laying out in chilling detail Vance Belter's alleged plot to stalk and kill dozens of lawmakers in Minnesota. Belter in court Monday facing a list of federal charges for carrying out 2 attacks, including 2 counts of murder for fatally shooting State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark Saturday.
Belter stalked his victims like prey. This was a political assassination.
In court documents, photos of investigators say Belter's SUV, 5 firearms, including assault-style rifles, tactical body armor, a silicone mask, and multiple notebooks filled with names and addresses of more than 45 elected officials, all Democrats.
So this guy literally showed up at people's houses that night, attempted to impersonate a police officer, gain their trust, open the door, and then tried to execute them.
Law enforcement arresting him late Sunday. Now, as Minnesota struggles to heal, this morning the children of Melissa and Mark Horman speaking out. Sophie and Colin writing, "We are devastated and heartbroken," thanking law enforcement for their heroic attempts to rescue our mom and dad, adding, "Our parents lived their lives with immense dedication to their fellow humans. This tragedy must become a moment for us to come together."
Many people are wondering why it seems like the dial is being turned up on violence in our politics. I think this is an inevitable consequence of government getting bigger and bigger, having a larger impact in our lives, because as government grows, it comes at the expense of our individual liberties. So a lot of times solutions are one size fits all, and government needs to extract from each of us in order to go in the direction it wants to go with something. So when an election happens, that means people have a lot at stake. So I think this is part of the reason why we're seeing more violence in politics. And the only solution is the libertarian solution, and that's to get government smaller.
So, what do you guys think about that story? I mean, I just, just terrible, but that seems to be that the dial keeps being turned up. I mean, we saw them attempt to assassinate Trump a few times on his way up, and I just don't see this cooling down anytime soon. What do you guys think about all this?
Well, I think that there is a great deal of hypocrisy involved in all of this, in the sense that you see all of these politicians of the left making threats against people they disagree with. It's going on all over our society. We had the majority speaker of the Senate stand on the Supreme Court, on the steps of the Supreme Court, and threatened two Supreme Court justices, and one of them was almost assassinated. I think it was the FBI or some law enforcement agency arrested a man just outside Brent Kavanaugh's home, where his wife and his children were at the time of the arrest. But this is the sort of thing that is going on. Now, the media will cover those instances as just hardboard politics. But whenever you see it on the other side, like the so-called insurrection that occurred on January 6th in 2021, we hear all of these things about insurrection. We hear all of these things about Trump inciting violence, even though no insurrection was ever called, no insurrection was ever proven, and Trump was impeached, and nothing in the impeachment said that he incited violence. So how the media is covering all of this is to make sure that it furthers violence by accusing one side of violence and downplaying the violence that comes on the other side. Now, I am not saying that the right, Republican, do not issue their things that may sound like they're inciting violence, their rhetoric that sometimes get a little bit heated. I'm not saying that does not happen. But the fact of the matter, these things are being covered and treated differently in society. I think even laws are being selectively enforced. We are being very selective about who we prosecute in these things. We looked at what happened on January 6th. Look at how these people were treated versus all the other instances where they were burning down our cities in this great land of ours. And what did we get? Hardly anybody was ever prosecuted for that. As a matter of fact, we have this horrible case. Oh, yes, there we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to remind people.
Just to remind everybody about
fiery but mostly peaceful protesting.
Exactly.
This never gets old. Never gets old.
Never gets old. And we also had this horrible case in Missouri where the protesters, the so-called protesters, broke down a gate on private property. Two people took out, a man and a woman, husband and wife, took out guns to protect their property. And you know who was prosecuted?
Yeah.
The people who were protecting their property. Yeah. This is the madness. And this, Jason, you're right. Government is becoming too large and they're becoming too selective in who they're prosecuting. This is really, really a problem in our society. And this violence will get worse and continue growing until we get back to our founding principles of equality before the law, equal justice for everyone.
Before Tim goes, real quick, I just wanted to bring up that point you just mentioned of that couple that pulled out guns to defend themselves in that gated community, because this was, somewhat self-defense. I'm sure Tim will have some ideas on that because, whether or not they were in their house or out of their house. But the bottom line is somebody literally broke down the gate in their community and people were marching through and were watching all the things burning down all over the place. And the idea that, oh my God, those people are showing some signs of self-defense. We got to arrest them. We got to take away their law license, everything. Yeah. Anyways, yes. It seems to be just the heart of what's backwards in all this. Anyways, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
So Leon brought out an important feature, the whole equality in front of the law, which is a big part of it. And then the lack of equality, they'll prosecute some and not others. And Jason, you brought out the whole idea of a government that's so powerful that it's, these kinds of politicians that become targets. They're kind of like easy to, for somebody that has that kind of mental mindset to attack. They're right. It's obvious. Okay. Politicians have too much power over us, so let's take out a couple of politicians to make a statement. But then I just wanted to bring out the third factor, and that's the individual that's doing this kind of thing. I think they have the ability to do that. And I couldn't do that. I mean, we all live in the same thing. it's number one, it's not fair, like Leon said, and like Jason said, it's too powerful. But the third factor is these people that are capable of doing that kind of violence. So I think that those kinds of people are still in our society, whether it's completely fair and whether it's a low threshold of power over us. I think they would have some beef against somebody or another, and so I think that's the third factor. And I think that's about it. It's just a third factor. I think if those people didn't have politicians to shoot or to attack, they would pick somebody else. They'd pick some rich guy or somebody.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me with all this is we see some of these people out there and they're getting so angry and violent over proposed changes to laws or additions to laws. To me, it strikes me as the only group really that has a righteous claim on being angry are libertarians, because we just want to be left alone. And I mean, the idea that every time anybody wants to do anything with government, it is generally a restriction on your rights, and it is reaching into your pocket. And yet a lot of these other people, they're just angry because it's not going their way. They're just fine with government reaching into other people's pockets and making restrictions on people, but they just don't want it to go their way. And so it's kind of like the kid throwing the tantrum when they're losing a game or something. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, there's something we got to change the mindset, I think, and this is maybe part of the libertarian. Maybe part of our mission is to just educate people on this stuff, and that it's just not moral to want to force all your stuff on other people. Well,
too often, way too often, whenever something go wrong in our society, we always hear the government must do something. The government must do something. But in this mindset of the government must do something, it always means enlarging the size of government. It always means that. If they want to pass some law, you're right. They want to take away our liberties, and the collective, they collect our liberties and put it into a nice package and send it out there and tell us this is the new law. These are your restrictions on your rights, and here you go. Even with all of these tragic incidents in Minnesota, or Jason, by the way, you said Florida, but you meant Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Yeah, we'll talk about Florida a little later in the show.
Yeah. You see, with all these tragedies that went on in Minnesota, one of the things that is coming out there, quite a few politicians you hear and talk, we got to do something about gun control, right? We got to do something about gun safety, which is nothing about an assault upon, ironically, an assault upon our Second Amendment rights. Okay, the guy was a lunatic, and the guy had some beef with all of these Democrat politicians, and he wanted to kill them. Okay, that have nothing to do with me or with my right to own and bear arms and protect myself if it becomes necessary. But because the government have to do something, here we go again. We're going to enlarge government, take away the rights of law-abiding citizens, just because one lunatic did this nonsense in Minnesota. That is a problem.
Well, one thing too, this guy targeted all Democrats, and we don't know his motive yet. It's not completely clear. At first, there was a lot of speculation because the gal who was killed, I think her name is Hortman, she was, she had a very tearful vote that she made about a week before on immigrant welfare, or immigrant health care rather, in Minnesota. And so a lot of people speculated that, because that was a pretty big bill, that an issue that she was a deciding vote for. And a lot of people speculated that might be it, but right now it's still not clear why this guy did what he did, other than the fact that he was targeting all Democrats. But it's interesting though, because you talk about some of these gun things, and I mean, well, did the is the person maybe feel a little more comfortable targeting these people because most of their houses might be gun-free zones, right? I mean, you kind of wonder. I mean, and then to top it off, listen to how the reporter talked too. They talked about the guns in the car, assault-style guns, and I mean, this is another crazy thing. We hear about all these assault weapons bills, and it's like, what the heck is an assault weapon, right? And I mean, we're just playing with all these goofy definitions that wind up infringing on people's rights, maybe because it has a handle in a place that another gun doesn't have a handle. Suddenly it's an assault weapon. I don't know. But yeah, Tim, it looked like you probably wanted to break in on this.
Oh, about this? Well, nah, that's standard fare. They got to point out the lethality of the firearms used, and that's part of the deal. But I just think it's important to point out that and I think if I can speak for all three of us, is that we abhor this kind of behavior. It's not like we want Democrats killed and all that kind of stuff. I just want to just make that point, is all.
Yeah,
well,
I do think. Oh, sorry.
And to me, I agree with you. Nobody, none of us here will call for the killing of anyone, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, or whatever, or no party identification. I think that is not, I think, any one of us intention. What the intention is here is equal justice under the law, and I think we are straying too far away from that very concept. And this is this is going to be one of the root causes of the political violence we are seeing here in our society. I think Jason's point about the enlarging government is obviously a big factor. But this aggregated way of we trying to handle the justice, the dispensation of justice in our land is seriously problematic. And I think we've got to be very careful. But you're absolutely right. Nobody here is calling for violence against anyone.
Yeah. The only point I was going to throw in there when you talked about violence against Democrats is that it is instructive, though, that party is the party that pushes for enlarging government, which is, I think, part of what's turning the dial up on people getting angry, right? And so, because the bigger you make government, the more that encroaches on individuals' liberty. It's like, if I'm shopping at Walmart and I decide to buy a red hat, it makes no difference to me if there's a guy in the other side of the store and he's buying a green hat, but if it's a government one size fits all hat, everybody gets a red hat or everybody gets a green hat, right? And I mean, then suddenly it matters, right? If the other guy down there is voting for the green hat and I want a red hat, that now there's conflict, right? And that's part of the problem of government. When you raise the stakes there, you got planners and they're going to push it in one direction or another. And I think it's just better left in the market, so that we can all just do our business and not encroach on each other. But yeah.
Tim, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Did you want to jump in on something?
No.
Yeah. Well, too often we talk about this thing about when we see government intervene in the marketplace, where they're becoming the picker. They're picking winners and losers in our society, whether it's a business or some financial institution. They're picking winners and losers. The problem is when this is particularly bad when they start picking winners and losers in the dispensation of justice, and this is a problem. And this is a problem we have to guard against. Otherwise, all our constitutional rights will go down the drain in the name of social justice, which is a disease in our society right now.
Yeah, well, I think, these are all good points. But, one of the things I think it's instructive, too, is to try and understand even what peaceful protesting is, because, clearly this was an issue of violence that happened, this assassination in Minnesota. But there's a lot of other violence that's happening out there during these protests, too. And yet we constantly see these things being advertised as peaceful. I mean, I'll bring back up that CNN Chiron real quick. But, the idea that somebody would look at this and they'd stare you in the face, a news agency, no less, and they would say, fiery, but mostly peaceful protesting after police shooting. And, I thought there was a funny, I think I brought it up last week, but there was a funny Babylon Bee thing where they said Trump responds to mostly peaceful protests by sending in mostly peaceful military. And I mean, it's just nuts the way we're defining all this stuff, right? I mean, we've got to have a little more sense than what we're doing. And I think this next topic is going to touch on that a little bit. So we had a case where Kristi Noem was in Los Angeles here in California, and she was addressing some of the issues I think happening with the ICE raids that the riots were centered around, or the protesting, the peaceful protesting and riots, both of them, right? Let's just, but the issue was that he came in and he decided.
He being who?
Well, Padilla. So Padilla, Senator Padilla, decided to come to this press conference, and because they weren't, it's this idea of he's claiming he was doing something peaceful by sort of rushing the podium and deciding he was going to take over the talk. And this was just a press briefing by Kristi Noem. So it wasn't really expected, I think, that anybody was going to be speaking other than her, and, no announcement or anything else. So, let's watch a video and we'll see what it is exactly we're talking about here. Let's see. I think we're getting a little bit of feedback, Tim. I'm going to mute your mic there, and let's get to the video.
Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to
hands off.
How many of our ICE agents have been docked for
On the ground. Hands behind your back.
If you don't my hands, go ahead, put behind my back.
All right, cool. One hand, lay flat.
So the press briefing of Kristi Noem was just that, a press briefing. Padilla wasn't invited. He just sort of invited himself, and there was no notice that he was going to try and speak. He just sort of rushed or moved towards the microphone as she started speaking, and that's what triggered the security reaction. But of course, Padilla is going to play the victim out of this for all it's worth.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees, and then flat on my chest.
So we've seen Padilla trying to make the most out of peaceful protesting. But let's see another politician from New York who's trying something similar.
Guys, back up, guys, back up. I understand. You're pregnant, but I need you to back up. If you're interfering with this arrest, we're going to back up, guys. Back up, guys.
This is not legal to take someone without a judicial warrant. Please don't.
Brad Lander is a mayoral candidate right now in New York City. He's also happens to be the current comptroller there as well. What you can see happening here is he is clearly obstructing justice under the guise of peaceful protesting. The ICE agents are going into the courtroom where they have into the courthouse where they have the authority to legally arrest these illegal immigrants who are there. Whether you like it or not, that is current law. And what you see Brad Lander do is trying to join arms with the person who is being arrested so that he can obstruct the police's or the ICE agent's ability to perform their arrest. Now, if this were any other crime, we would see this for what it was. If there was somebody who was literally trying to shoplift and you joined arms with the person as the police were trying to arrest that person, then you would be obstructing justice at that point.
Put him in the elevator and then claim you have the warrant. You don't have a warrant for him.
I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant. Where is it?
So show it. Let us see it. So let us see it before you take his warrant.
Excuse me, please stay back. Take it back. Step back. Please, step back, guys. Step back.
So Brad Lander was arrested, and then he was immediately released because he is a connected politician. And here's the press conference that he had immediately set up for him to capitalize on this.
I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander, and I'm happy to report I am just fine. I lost a button. At that elevator, I was separated from someone named Edgardo, who I had just met a couple of minutes earlier. Edgardo is in ICE detention, and he's not going to sleep in his bed tonight. So far as I know, he has no lawyer.
Lastly, I just wanted to make the point here that clearly Brad Lander had just met this migrant, didn't know anything about him, probably didn't even know what he was being sought by ICE for, and he was clearly using the moment, and clearly he wasn't representing him. So when he's asking to see a warrant in that footage that you saw, it's just like any average citizen asking to see a warrant. He wasn't representing the migrant. So there you go.
So, yeah. So what do you guys think about this story? I mean, you know, we could certainly maybe have sympathy with some of these cases in the migrants, but in this particular case, we don't even know the backstory of the migrant, and Brad Lander didn't know either. He just inserted himself.
Well, may I interrupt? Your video was so long, it blew right through your 28-minute countdown.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. Have not been doing my proper job managing the time. So yeah, if you happen to be watching, you're going to have to see the rest on online. So I'm not sure if this will get cut in or not. But yeah, you can check out the full show online. So anyways, back to the show.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, that was all I wanted to say. I mean, Jason's cameos kind of, I guess, explained it. Not to mention the videos themselves. Although, you know, to be fair, we're getting these videos at the beginning of the tussling around, the ruckus. You know, that's where it's getting its focus. We don't know what he did leading up to that. We don't know what the protocol. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, Tim, on this particular one, it's true we didn't on Padilla, but on Brad Lander we did, and this is one of the things I probably should have mentioned in there. But most of the mainstream media is inaccurately showing. I mean, they're literally cutting out, like you're saying, what happened at the beginning. The instructive part of that video is you see Brad Lander linking arms with his wife and this migrant. So before, as the ICE agents are approaching him, and you can hear them say, "Hey, you need to back off, or we're, because we're arresting this guy. You need to back off, or we're going to arrest you." And you see, he doesn't. He holds on to him while they're trying to pull the migrant who they are arresting away, and he is not letting go. So we're seeing the whole thing there. But yeah, you're right. With Padilla, we didn't see all we saw was him sort of up there and the agents rushing him, and it would have been nice if we could see the whole thing, but that's where somebody started filming it. So just
to cut in for a second on the Padilla case, and Padilla, or however you pronounce his name, we do not have the video from the beginning of his actions, but we have good reporting on it. It's well reported. So okay, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I think maybe that's all Tim had, or.
Yeah. I was just saying. From what I see, I don't see enough. I don't know what he was doing, and nor do I know what the protocol is in a press conference. But I would assume that it's just the one person answering questions, and the questions are coming from the press, not from other politicians. But I don't know. I don't know. I have to be honest. I just don't know. If he was rushing the podium as is described, I didn't see it because I just saw him being clambered away. But anyway, there you go. I just don't have a lot on that.
I am downright ashamed that this damn fool is my senator. Okay, quite frankly, let me just be clear. Okay, for one thing, even he said it in the video. I am a U.S. senator. I'm Senator I am Senator Alex Padilla, or however they had to pronounce his name. I really don't care right now. I'm so disgusted with him. Think about this. He's a U.S. Senator. He can request.
Is he U.S. or California?
No, U.S.
He's a U.S. Senator. He's one of our two U.S. senators.
Okay, so he's one of the two senators in the state of California?
Yeah, and see, that's the funny thing, Tim. None of us even recognize the beginning of all the, like, you're literally live here and you don't even know that he's one of our senators. I didn't before this story broke. I mean, I'd heard his name before, but I'd never seen him as one of our senators. So the idea that he's walking around acting like everybody should know who he is, it's like, I'm a senator.
I can't believe you guys don't know who this guy is. Wow. Okay. All right. That's okay. That's all right. But the point I was going to get to, he's our being California in this case, one of our two U.S. senators. Okay. This man can request a briefing from the Secretary of Homeland Defense, the Homeland Security, at any time he wishes. The irony here, after this real ruckus occurred, Kristi Noem, who is the secretary, sat with this man for 15 to 20 minutes to update him on everything that was going on in Los Angeles. He could have got a briefing anytime. But no, this fool wanted a grandstand. He wanted to get out there and before the question and answer session began, he wanted to get out there and start asking questions and rushing up to the podium to do what? To what end? Other than a political stunt. I was glad they would put him down on the ground. I wish they had actually arrested him and put his ass in jail. I'm sorry. I really wish they did. Because this damn fool is not worthy of representing me.
Do you think he was fishing for more votes?
He was fishing for attention. You know, you know what's going on here? You know what is going on here? Everybody, you see this next damn fool in New York and this Padilla and the rest of the Democrats, everybody want this special carve out on laws concerning immigration. Why? This special carve out. Well, we can't really enforce these laws. These laws are not really, they do not reach up to the moral standard of being enforced. Well, why Leon, we need a special carve out for migrants and immigration laws? If I, Leon Brathwaite, driving down the street and I'm speeding in a 20 mile per hour school zone and I'm going down at 60 miles an hour and the police stop me, pull me over, and want to give me a big fat ticket, which he should. What am I supposed to say? Well, officer, I'm an immigrant. Give me a break now, please. That's what I'm supposed to say? That's not supposed to get me anywhere? Well, if you cross the damn border, you are breaking our laws, and you have no special dispensation as a result of doing that. And these Democrats who are supposed to be the makers of these laws, who are supposed to be representing us, Tim Padilla in particular, represents in the Senate. These are the people who are making the laws, and now they're trying to encourage people to break those very laws that they have created. What madness is this?
Yeah, I would just say one thing, and that's that, as far as a lot of the migrants go, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them, I mean, this is just a terrible system that we have for immigration. So, and I mean, a lot of this is a lot of terrible incentives that have been built up in the system. So, the idea that a person who literally just wants to come here and work might have to wait 15 years to do it in some cases is nuts, right? I mean, but yeah, aside from that, though,
No. Okay. The most terrible laws we have in this country, where? Is in the IRS. Okay. That's the most terrible laws we have in this country. And we all live by them. Okay. We hate them. We talk bad about the IRS. We say all kind of bad stuff about them. And they want to take us to court, take away our properties when we don't pay our taxes. These are the most horrible people we have in government today. But you know what? We live by those laws. We fight to change them. We hope Trump will do something about it. Right now, we have this great hope that Trump is going to do something about this thing. But we live by them. These are the laws of our land. I do not see why immigration law is any different from the laws we live under as a result of the IRS. What? Where is it? Why is it different?
Okay, so if I could kind of piggyback on what Leon's saying. and kind of in a different way. And what Jason just said is that the system is broken, the immigration system is broken, and by the way, I think I have to agree on the IRS too. But this Senator Padilla is one of the people that needs to fix the broken immigration system. So rather than make a grandstand of the whole thing, why doesn't he get down and start working hard on coming up with a new and improved immigration system through bills that they pass through Congress? How's that sound? Right?
Yeah. Well, that's the way. Well, Tim, that is the way the system's supposed to work. We have laws. The laws have gone bad. The system is broken and all that kind of stuff. Well, let's go out and advocate for its change. We don't start to carve out and say, well, these people could break the law and other people can't. No, that's the same kind of selective prosecution I'm speaking about. If we have laws on the books, they may be hard like hell, they might be bad like hell. We have to advocate to change them. And this is exactly what you're saying. And I totally agree. You know, Jim Crow was legal. Jim Crow was legal in this country. Okay? And people live by them. It was an unfortunate, tragic thing, but they live by them until Martin Luther King came along and fought and changed those laws as he should have. And this is the way the system's supposed to work. We don't want fools like Padilla and this other one in New York to be running around locking arms and obstructing the federal agents from doing their job, and then telling us they have some kind of, they're trying to serve some moral cause. This is nonsense. We have laws. They're terrible laws. They may be. Then let's change them. Let's fight to change them. I will lock hands with you, and if we want to fight to change them. But don't come with this nonsense. No.
Yeah. Well, you know, the sad thing in all this too is that, I mean, it's perfect comment from Tim that you know, hey, Padilla is one of the guys who's supposed to be fixing this. Right, you know, exactly. and he's not. But you know, part of the issue is because Democrats keep trying to, you know, essentially pile on free stuff or free perks with all this stuff. And that's the problem, right? I mean, if this was something like the immigration of the, you know, what Milton Friedman talked about in the 1920s or something, I don't think most of us would have a huge issue with, you know, the larger numbers of immigrants. But the problem is that, I mean, we saw this when the Democrats were, in fact, I even had the video, but I didn't bring it up for this show, but it was a Democrat presidential primary back in, I believe it was the 2020 primary, I think it was. I think it was 20.
No, yes, Kamala was in it. So I think it was 20.
Yeah. And so you had about 10 or 12 Democrats on stage, all raising their hands in unison when they said that immigrants should get free health care. Yes. So, I mean, it's just like, you know, one thing after another. And of course, we just saw what Newsom tried to do here in California. He tried to add free health care, and now suddenly he's scrambling to figure out how to fix it because it just blew a $12 billion hole in this current budget in California. So, you know, and he told us it wouldn't cause a problem. It would save us money is what he told us. So, I mean, but these are the types of things, you know, I mean, we hear constantly from groups like Cato that, hey, you know, there's no welfare for them. But yet we see in practice somebody like Mayor Eric Adams saying that we have to feed them, we have to clothe them, we have to house them. And he said it's going to destroy New York City. Well, I mean, you can play a semantic game that they're not getting welfare, but I mean, if they're getting all those benefits, those are perverse incentives. And you got to have government not be offering that kind of stuff. I mean, this has to be, if you leave it to the private sector, like, you know, immigration back in the 20s or something, then most people aren't going to have a huge issue with it. So, you know, but yeah, this is part of the problem, I think. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, I think moving on to the next story. So on this particular one, we're talking about the roadways, and let me see here if we've Democrats have been explaining that everything is, peaceful despite the violence and everything else. And they talk about these things, you know, being mostly peaceful. I mean, here we see an article from CBS that talks about, you know, how they clogged the freeways. Well, is that peaceful? I mean, is it peaceful to block everybody on a freeway? Is it peaceful to block every everybody on a road. And I mean, because you're violating the people's rights who are trying to get through there, especially on a freeway, because you're holding those people hostage. They can't just back up and get out. And so these are some issues here, but it leads to violence. I mean, we're talking about, you know, when government doesn't do it's one of its few jobs, which is to protect, you know, individuals and their property, then, you know, everything goes haywire. So I'm going to show this video now of some of the issues that have been happening with this mostly peaceful protesting on the roads. It's causing a lot of people to get injured.
So some of the confusion we've had with quote unquote peaceful protesting is that a lot of people are claiming it's peaceful to block somebody else who has nothing to do with whatever your cause is, to be able to essentially either hold them hostage in place, like on a freeway, or block them from being able to cross a road, which is actually not very peaceful. So to understand this better, let's take a look at a few different incidents that have happened around the country.
This happening just after 9 o'clock Saturday night near the intersection of University and Orange in Riverside. You can see one protester appearing to bump into the SUV, then another one punching a rear tail out. That's when the driver makes a quick turn and speeds around traffic that was stopped at the light, running over one protester. Incredible that no one else was hurt. Now, the victim in this case was rushed to the hospital, where that person is being treated for their injuries in critical but stable condition right now. It is unclear whether the act was intentional, whether this person was trying to run over a protester, or whether they were just panicked and trying to get away.
So in the two cases we just saw, protesters were blocking people's cars, and they actually started attacking the cars. So this is a clear violation of the person's rights who is in that car. And if we think about where they're at on a roadway, that is a commons that was designed for people to peacefully pass, not to be a place where people can hold other people hostage. So it seems like everything is clearly in the rights of the drivers here, and yet we see blue city after blue city, no one is defending the drivers' rights. They are only defending the protesters' violation of your rights.
Because the agents had lined up, you know, maybe a couple of dozen people with their hands behind their back, all in handcuffs. Now they're taking them away. And when I say it's not the first time, earlier today in Los Angeles at a Home Depot in the Westlake district, there was a raid and there were arrests made, as we understand it. KTLA reported on that.
So these are ICE vehicles leaving from the site of an immigration raid with people inside of them who they've apprehended. And the reason I've cut this video here is because what we're going to see is a protester is going to try to block one of the vans. And I think it's instructive because what we see in so many of these different protests nowadays is people getting out in freeways and other roadways and blocking just regular folks who have nothing to do with this. And in this case, though, it's the government that they're blocking. And so I think it's really going to help us to have a good conversation about what is peaceful protesting.
Letting them go. There, someone took a shot at that other van. You see that, the second van that came through? This woman is still running alongside. So this is an active situation in Los Angeles. So this has been going on throughout the day. The immigration crackdown, the administration often carried out by, yep, they're going to take a shot at the window, see if they let this SUV that's obviously part of the motorcade go. This guy's going to stand right in front of it as he's making his way down the street. So they've slowed down in terms of the miles per hour that they're using. Other people with phones are running right alongside. But this at Home Depot, we didn't have the video. I didn't see the video. If it was something similar, oh boy, just threw something right at the window. Oh, there goes the guy is down in the street there. So the car's going to stop and back it up. We probably get out of this a little bit, Duff, so we don't see anything too close. All right, the agents are going to pull around and man.
So what's kind of interesting about this scene is you saw a law enforcement vehicle literally run a protester over who wouldn't get out of the way of the vehicle. And imagine if that were an average citizen. And of course, these laws are also unclear and unvague at this, or so vague of how law enforcement is going to handle this at this point. I think this is just crazy. It's a clear case of where government is failing to do their job in regulating the commons of the road, and that is leading to violence. Now let's see how a red state, Florida, is dealing with this.
So what's happening in other states like Florida? Protesters are being given stark warnings about the consequences of demonstrations turning violent. The Republican governor is giving drivers the go-ahead to run down protesters if they feel threatened. And the sheriff of Brevard County warned of lethal force.
If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital. and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
You're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck.
So there you go. I mean, we've talked about this issue before. You know, is it peaceful to block a roadway? And I mean, I think there's a ton of problems, and it leads to a lot of violence. What do you guys think?
I like the sheriff from Florida. Okay, right? these people do not know their limits. All right. Sure, we are peaceful protests. Well, we could peaceably assemble. Those are the words of the Constitution. It is a right that is guaranteed in the First Amendment. It is there. Nobody could argue about that. But what we are seeing here with these lunatics is not constitutionally protected. Okay? And if you are violating other people's rights while you supposedly exercising, quote unquote, exercising your right, then I'm going to go with the guys in Florida, the sheriff and the governor. If I am in a car and my family is there, and you're going to come at that car and you want to, and I know what you're doing all over the place, burning cars, doing all kind of stuff, I'm going to run you over. Period. I'm going to protect my family. Okay? I'm going to run you over. So please take note. Fair warning. I'll run you over if you come at my vehicle and my family is in there. You could guarantee I'm going to run you over. Okay? I like the guy from Florida.
Yeah. and Leon is entirely in his rights to do that. And the reason is because, number one, Leon has freedom of movement, okay? If you impede him, that's like kidnapping Leon. That's like, temporarily forcing him to stay in a position that you want him to stay in, not the one that he wants to stay in. Well, that's not freedom, and we have a right to freedom of movement. And there's also the concept that Leon is afraid for his families, either great bodily harm or death, due to the fact that we have to fear the many and the strong and the young. Okay, so if we're old, the few, part of the few, in which case, you and I and Leon and anybody driving in a car, and the weak. Okay, we're being surrounded by a bunch of young, more than likely healthier, not in every case, but with the combined numbers of the gang. So we face great bodily harm. Okay, they have weapons, they have sticks and clubs and rocks and stuff like that, and they're throwing them at the cars and so on. But even if they stop you, pull open, somehow get you out or whatever, you risk great bodily harm or death. So you have every right to move through that. And I mean, and that means everybody, people in front, people on the sides, the cars and so on. Everybody, they need to get out. They need to keep moving. Okay, they should not let this bottleneck occur. But if it does, you can go around them. You can do whatever you want because you are in fear of your life. Okay, so this is not peaceful in any way, shape, matter, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to me it can be summarized best by saying, look, it's not peaceful if you're not allowing other people to peacefully pass, right? I mean, if you are blocking somebody else, I mean, we're certainly on private property, we all get that. I mean, if somebody were standing in your doorway to your house and wouldn't get out of the way, you'd call the cops. You'd say, hey, they're violating my property rights here. But, the idea that somehow it magically changes when they're on a street, that they get to encircle you or block you or hold you, this is nuts.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all force. If they put their hands on your car, trying to keep it from moving, That's force right there. That's force. That's now it has become violent. If you stand to the side of the car and let them pass, that's not violent. Okay. As soon as you get in front and put your hands on that car, try to keep them from going, or impede their way, in any other way with your body. You're utilizing force against them, and that's not peaceful. That's violent.
Yeah.
And guess what? The person in the car can use force back, okay? Because
there you go. There you go.
Well,
unfortunately, your protest is not constitutionally protected when you're using force against other people. Okay, it's not constitutionally protected. So,
unfortunately, we're talking in the land of rationality and thinking about what makes moral sense to liberty-minded people. But we're in a blue state, and that is not the mentality here. I mean, the mentality is somebody has the right to rush the microphone and grab it. Somebody has the right to force you off of a campus, if they don't like your speech. Somebody has the right to hold you up on a freeway for hours on end, and they get a slap on the wrist and you lose hours. Maybe, who knows what they could be causing, right? I mean, this indiscriminate blocking of people on the freeway, there could be an ambulance going that's stuck on the freeway, or a fire truck on a way to a fire, and now somebody's going to die because, some dimwit decided that, whatever they were talking about has to hold everybody hostage. I mean, your freedom of speech does not require, or does not give you the right to force other people to listen. It just says that the government can't silence you in public, but it doesn't say that they have the right. You have the right to hold somebody down and yell in their face, right? Exactly. Which is what we've somehow gotten to, at least when the left protests. That's what we've gotten to. So, well, yes. So I did have one other question for you guys on this story. That issue where the law enforcement vehicle went over a protester. What did you guys think about that one? Because to me, that's not quite the same thing as a citizen who is in fear for his life running over people who are pounding on their car. This is an issue of law enforcement doing that. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm sympathetic. That guy was obstructing justice, who was standing in front of the car. But do they have a different standard than the average citizen?
Well, in the video you just showed, I would say no. I would say the police officer was within his right, or it's probably not a police officer, it's probably an ICE agent.
Yeah, ICE agents. Yeah,
was within his right. I'm not saying you should go out and run people over. But I am sure you were given multiple warnings about getting out of the way. The police, this is an ICE agent doing his job. Okay, he's transporting people who are arrested and must be taken to whatever facility they're going to take them to. You're given warning not to block the agent from doing his job multiple times. The agent drove his car slowly, and we saw for how many 100 feet. I don't know how far, but he certainly drove it for quite a long time, giving you more than enough warning to tell you, listen, I am coming. I have a job to do, and you still want to stand in front of that vehicle. I think the officer had no choice. Honestly, you know what it's going to be like. It's like a police officer is on the street. And he sees something is about to happen, and he warned the person, stop. The person refused to stop. The police draw his gun and shoot the person. Okay. Yeah. If you're given a lawful command, and you disobey that command, you don't know what the police officer can or can't do. Okay. Yeah. You have to give him the freedom to act. So I mean I don't like what happened to the so-called protester, because well, for one thing, he put his hand was on the vehicle, so that's problematic already. Yeah. But I don't like what happened to the protester, but the police officer has a job to do. Well, the ICE agent in this case has a job to do, and you cannot be interfering with that.
Well, I do think it's instructive too that the guy did try to get around the protester. He didn't just aim at him. He was trying to get around, and the guy just kept staying in front of the vehicle. So there is that, but yeah.
Okay, to simplify it, Jason, for you, just ask yourself this. If a police officer is standing right there in along the sidewalk, does a protester or a group of protesters have the right to hog tie him and make him listen to their speech? Okay, can they do that? Yes or no? And the answer is no. They cannot hog tie the guy and keep him there for an hour and a half. So the same thing, they cannot stop him in a car. And not only does he have the right to push through if he has to, if he's in fear of his life, just like anybody else, but he also has a right to stop and arrest him and bring the entire police force down upon them, okay, and arrest every single one of them. Okay, so he's got a little bit more rights than us. Not only, we don't have the right to arrest, but we have the right to defend ourselves, and he does too. And if the best defense is moving your car through a group of angry protesters, then that's your best defense. It beats the hell out of taking your Glock 19 out and emptying the magazine into everybody. Okay.
Yeah. Certainly.
Okay, because that's the alternative. I mean, let's just say everybody stops him. There's 400 people around him, and they take a crowbar and a number of bars and baseball bats, break the windows, open the doors, unlock them, open the doors, get the guy out, and start beating him with a baseball bat. Okay?
Certainly. No, Tim, I get it. We don't need to keep drilling down. But
understand, he's got every right to do whatever he needs to do to get out of there.
Well, Tim, the point I'm trying to make is that if you did that, what he did, and then if you drove away afterwards, like we saw law enforcement drive away there, I mean, even though, I think technically, I think they should be able to do that. But man, us as citizens, if we did that here in California, we would be behind bars in a second, and they would say we fled the scene of a crime too. Is what they would say.
Better to be behind bars than having your wife go to your funeral the next weekend.
Yes. Okay. Better be to be behind bars than laying on a morgue table and your wife and the kids and grandkids have to come and see you there.
Work out the legalities later, but right now you have to save your life.
True. Totally agree.
And one thing to put an exclamation on that too, we've seen this happen with like cops in New York and maybe some other blue cities where the protesters will get around the police vehicle, and before you know it, the police are escaping the vehicle and the vehicle's on fire. So this is a very real possibility in some of these situations. So
and who knows what happened? Escaping the vehicle puts you out on foot with a bunch of other people. You're on more of an equal footing. If you're in the vehicle and it's moving and you can keep it moving, you've got a little advantage to potentially avoid great bodily harm.
Yes.
I remember back in Trump's first term, Rand Paul attended an event at the Trump White House. And after the event let out, there was an angry mob outside of the White House. And Rand Paul there was video of him. I'm not sure if he was with his wife or not.
He was with his wife.
Yeah.
He was with his wife.
And there was an angry crowd around him screaming and yelling at him, and it looked like it was going to get violent, and somehow he got through it. But, it's just like, wow, there's just no law enforcement presence because, who runs the DC police? Well, a Democrat, of course. Yes, of course. So that's the way they handle these things. So, But anyways, I think the whole point of all this is government basic job is to protect people's person and their property. That's the most fundamental job. And what we see happening in almost all of these cases of violence is where government is just failing. They're not doing it. They're putting their thumb on the scale. They're allowing some people to get away with violating other people's rights. And before you know it, it's going to turn violent. And it's just...
I don't know where that concept comes from, Jason. That's not their basic function. Their basic function is to uphold the law and arrest people that break the law. They do not have, and the Supreme Court has gone over this at least 4 times, and every single time, not necessarily the Supreme Court, but at least twice on the Supreme Court, and a number of times at the appellate courts, and every time they rule that the police do not have a duty to protect a citizen's life and property. They just
no. I get that, Tim. That's the way the law is. What I'm saying is, from a libertarian perspective, the only purpose of government, if there even is a purpose for government, is to essentially protect people and their property, right? I mean, if they're not doing that, what the heck is the purpose of having a government, right? I mean, no. They're just an armed gang at that point if they're not doing anything to protect you, right? I mean, but they're taking from you, but they're not protecting you. What's the point?
But I'm confused. I'm confused. Tim, you saying if a police officer seen someone about to kill another person, that person has no duty to stop that action from occurring?
Yeah. It's kind of let's see. They have a duty to try to stop the perpetrator, but not at the risk of their own life. In other words, they're not. For example, here's an example: a guy's got a gun and you're in the line of fire. The police officer does not have a duty to get in front of the guy with the gun, okay? If you can try to shoot him from another angle, fine, but he does not have a duty to protect you, the citizen.
But and more to the point, Leon, suppose you were a shop owner or you have a house. I mean, you could say, well, the law is that, it's a crime for somebody to come and steal my stuff or break into my shop and steal my stuff. But you can't sue the city if the police don't show up to protect you, right? So,
I understand. That I understand, okay, but I'm talking about cases of imminent danger, though. I'm not sure what is being said here is correct. In cases of imminent danger, I think a police officer has a duty to do whatever he can to stop the perpetrator in those cases. We had a wait. Let me tell you about a real life case. It was in Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland, Ohio, one of them. A police officer, there was an altercation going on between two families. Police officer was called out, okay? But the altercation was still going on even while the police officer was there. He was taking a statement. A 16-year-old girl had, I think, a 13-year-old girl pinned against a car with a kitchen knife about to launch into her chest.
Yeah, I remember that one.
You remember that case? The police officer shot her. No, stop. And the girl wouldn't stop. The police officer shot the girl. Okay? And I think the police officer was perfectly correct in doing his job in that particular case. Now, some of these so-called activists were jumping around and crying on, oh, this, that, they're killing another black person. Blah, blah, blah.
And Leon, Biden probably said, shoot him in the leg. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think in cases of imminent danger, I think a police officer has a duty to protect life and property in cases of imminent danger.
Okay, that's a good example. And in that situation, they have a right to stop them. I don't know about a duty, but let's just assume that they would feel duty bound, which most police officers would. Then what I'm referring to is situations more like Jason's, where you're being overrun or whatever, like in some of these riots, and where is the police presence? So how come the police didn't come out to my neighborhood and protect me from all these rioters and that kind of thing? And when people get hurt, that's the way they look at it. Doesn't the police have a duty to protect us? But in that situation, the riots and that kind of thing, no, they don't. Now, if they were there, then they would. But if they're not, they don't have like a duty to they're often putting out fires, rioting fires elsewhere. They're not going to get a phone call and say, "Hey, Leon, I'm Leon Brathwaite, and they're coming into my neighborhood. Can you send out a couple of squad cars?" And they're saying, "Well, we're a little bit busy right now, Leon. So we'll get to you when we can. In the meantime, you're on your own." And that's the thing I'm talking about.
Well, okay, then if that is what you're talking about, then yes, I have to agree. Okay, I have to agree with that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess it gets back to Jason's point. You can't I can't sue the police office, the city or the police department because they didn't send out the two squad cars you're just talking about, Tim. However, I'm just saying, and okay, fine, I agree with your characterization now, but I still stand by what I said. When there's a case of imminent danger, a police officer has a duty to do his job, and that job may involve shooting someone, as that case happened in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and this is where I think, if people would just sort of wake up to some of these ideas on liberty, you look at these terrible, I mean, situations, these riots and all these things, and you're wondering, I mean, think about what's even happening when there's not a riot in California. Somebody can just walk into your store, steal $950 worth of stuff and leave, and you've really got no recourse. It's like, what's the purpose of government at that point, right? I mean, government appears to be just some violent gang that you have to pay protection money to, and they really don't do much of a job protecting you. So I really feel like, this should really make a lot of people skeptical about what it is that they expect from government.
True.
But anyways, we're getting near the end of the show, and it's interesting what Sean Penn expects from government. So let's go to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. He was recently with Bill Maher on his what is it, Club Random, I think he calls it, and he was talking to Bill Maher about the visit that Trump made to the White House, and it was kind of interesting too, because even though he was criticizing Bill, he wasn't super critical. I mean, to be fair, I didn't show all the video, but he actually said, hey, it's okay if you go, but I wouldn't go, is what his main point was. But he's also visited these horrible dictators like Hugo Chavez and Castro and others, and the idea that he thinks that that's somehow noble. But anyways, let's watch the video, and you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here.
So again, there's three parts of this. Would you go to the dinner? I think you're crazy not to want to see up close the person who's this important in everybody's lives for the last decade.
I completely understand that.
Two, are you going to lie about it? I'm sorry, I'm not a liar. I don't lie, so I told the truth. And then three, do I go back to doing what I always did? Yes, I did.
Yeah, but you could have told more truth, or you could have told less truth.
I told a lot of truth. I told everything.
I would have enjoyed a little more brevity on that, but I absolutely understand the dinner.
That's just emotional. You were just triggered.
It's possible. It's possible. It's true that.
But I
for
would
some
like to.
reason this particular president triggers me rather.
Really, you'll meet with fucking
I don't think
Castro and Hugo Chavez, but not the president of the United States.
Yeah, I saw good results come out of some of those things in terms of agendas that I had. I don't think that there's anything that I would. I just personally wouldn't trust anything that was said in the room.
So this is part of the problem, is that people like Sean Penn, which is a lot of the left, they're super triggered by Donald Trump, but they're super in love with ideas of socialism. And so they will go and support some of the worst regimes on earth, and yet they will not even open their ears, I guess, for our current president. Whether you like him or not, as Bill Maher has said, that's kind of nuts. So let's see how Sean Penn's support for Venezuela and Hugo Chavez has worked out.
Venezuela has been producing oil since 1914, but what's known as the resource curse really set in when the charismatic and controversial Hugo Chavez was elected president in 1998.
So let me make it clear. It wasn't a resource curse that hurt them. It was going all in on socialism, which is what we're going to see as the video goes on.
When Chavez takes office, the price of oil was $7 a barrel. Within several years, it gets to over $120 a barrel. So Chavez was very fortunate because he comes in just at the beginning of this great commodities boom.
Chavez spent huge sums of oil money on social programs and borrowed even more, plunging his country into debt. But ordinary Venezuelans felt rich and heard for a change.
So now you're going to see that when oil prices crash, that's when the true costs of socialism hit home in Venezuela.
When Chavez died of cancer in 2013, his hand-picked successor was Nicolas Maduro. He wasn't so lucky or so popular. Oil prices crashed. Inflation reached an inconceivable 300,000%. Maduro met public discontent with repression. and millions left the country.
So Hugo Chavez, which is an absolute disaster for Venezuela. But let's hear what Sean Penn had to say about him when he went and visited him and lent his credibility to Hugo Chavez.
So I just want to say that from my very American point of view,
Quiero decir desde mi muy americano punto de vista,
of my friend President Chavez,
a mi amigo el presidente Hugo Chávez,
it is only possible to be so inspiring as he is, as a two-way street. He is one of the most important forces we've had on this planet.
So one of the most important forces on the planet, I guess, for making people poor. Anyway, yeah, just nuts, though. What do you guys think about this? I mean, he literally says, I wouldn't go to talk to Trump and listen to him, but I'm going to support some of the worst leaders on the planet.
You see, these people like Sean Penn they are nothing but a bunch of friggin' lunatics. You see that same problem we have at the southern border, in this country. We have that same problem in Trinidad. And you know who is the migrants in those cases? The so-called migrants in those cases? A bunch of Venezuelans running away from socialism. There's only about, at the closest point, there are about 9 miles of ocean between Venezuela and Trinidad. And a bunch of them just cross the waters and come to Trinidad. And why? They run away from socialism, even though we are very much better where the socialism is concerned, where that is concerned. But we are a hell of a lot better than Venezuela, I can tell you that much. But these idiots could never look at the results of their admiration of these socialist governments, like admiring Hugo Chavez, admiring Nicolas Maduro. These people cannot look at the results. They could always look at the good intentions of these people. Well, let me tell you a little lesson here, newsflash. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I wish Sean Penn and people like him will learn that.
Sean Penn is a better actor than he is a judge of political character.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure, yeah. I'll accept that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of just horrifying, but I mean, it really brings back, I think, our quote that we brought at the beginning of the show. And I mean, that's, prior to capitalism, the way people amassed great wealth was by looting, plundering, and enslaving their fellow man. Yeah. And capitalism made it possible for to become wealthy serving your fellow man. And how did they get that oil developed? They got it developed through capitalism. And what happened when socialism took over their oil and their oil money? The country just absolutely is a disaster now. And, yes. We couldn't show everything, but I mean, the current president there, Maduro, the people are starving. They joke about the Maduro diet because everybody loses weight in that country, except for Maduro and his cronies. And there was even a famous video where he was addressing people, telling them how they had to, I think, eat rabbits or something like that as part of the new plan to capture rabbits and eat them. And while he was sitting there on the address eating, people had no food. And it's just absolutely nuts, what happens in these terrible places. But, I'm hoping we don't make the mistake, because a lot of those protesters out there are just like Sean Penn. They're in love with socialism. And if, we've got a $37 trillion debt, and if that winds up collapsing us, you may see a lot of people who don't see it as being big government that was the problem. They may think they need a lot more of it. And that's
This is just the point. When things go wrong, the first thing they always say, the government should do something. The government will do something. When 99% of the times, it's the government that caused the problem in the first case.
Yeah. I also thought it was instructive, too, that the media there, even though they described the problem, they didn't see it as socialism. They saw it as just the fall in oil prices was all that went wrong. Yeah. If not for that fall in oil prices, everything would be absolutely wonderful.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
So, well, I think unless any of you guys have any other ideas, I think we're just about to wrap here. So, you guys have any final words on this topic or anything else?
I'm with Walter Williams. Go socialism. No, go capitalism.
You almost brought Walter Williams out of his grave. Go socialism.
I guess I just had a Biden moment. What can I say?
Well, yeah, I can't think of anything else. So, hopefully we'll have some new guests on soon. Maybe next week we might talk about the what's going on with Iran. That's pretty scary stuff, this war footing that we seem to be on. So, maybe it's something we'll talk about in the next show. But until the next time, think about what you can do in your community to help move the ball for liberty, because if you're seeing everywhere, there's always people who are out there looking to erode our liberties. And if you're not part of the solution, odds are, we're going to be losing those liberties. But until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.